Good for you. All right, we're going to call the Library Board of Trustees meeting to order. Can we get a roll call, please?
Bernie.
Present.
Wells.
Present.
Peterson. Here. Balloon.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Pitlock. Here. Fehrenbach.
Here.
Flecker.
Here.
Wurzbach.
Okay, we have a quorum. We are in compliance with Wisconsin open meeting laws and public record laws. Visitors and guests. Wow. We'll take a quick second. We'll go around the room. Start over here. Just say your name.
Susie Gilbert. I'm with the Hudson Area Library Foundation.
Sarah Watson, with Leo A. Daily.
Cindy McCleary, Leo A. Daily Architects.
Bill Bauer, Leo A. Daily Architects.
Joyce Law, Friends Library and Foundation.
Dave Benowitz, Hudson Area Library. Randall Ryder, retired professor.
Judy Gray, Library Foundation.
Rob Howard Foundation. Paul Mullen, Library Foundation.
Gary Wright's Library Foundation, and that brochure family has an envelope of you too. One day to donate them at the time, and it's considered half of the program. Oh, I'm Jeff Robert. Foundation.
Okay, let me have Jamie.
And Howard online and
Awesome. All right, citizen comments. Are there any citizen comments? I actually have to pause for a second here. Are there any citizen comments? Last call, any citizen comments? Okay, hearing none, we will close that part of the agenda. Go on to number 3, which is an action item, approval of consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay, we got a motion to approve the consent agenda by Wells. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Fehrenbach. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved unanimously. Number 4, presentation and discussion, Leo Daily Building Options Report. And with that, turn it over to the terrific trio.
Yeah, let's
The people online see the PowerPoint. Oh. Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, everybody. So we introduced ourselves a second ago. The 3 of us, Cindy, myself, and Sarah, are from Leo A. Daily. We're all 3 architects, and we've been serving over the last 2 months at the Library Foundation in study of options for this building and beyond. And so we're here tonight to share with you a quick summary of what we studied in service of the Library Foundation. And hopefully answer some of your questions. Without any further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. Are there any questions before we do? Mentioned there are 3 of us. You don't need to do that anymore. So, we began our study. We have some history in this building. Cindy McCleary, in years past, has been serving to this project. You may know her from that time. So we have a great benefit of her knowledge as well as some of your knowledge from earlier projects. Going back some years, we also did a study of the system, the structure, the way the library functions and serves its needs. And so we identified areas of need. We won't go into detail on those, other than to say, from the get-go, this building has been occupied by a library that wasn't its initial year. So obviously going back to the Anderson Corporation, this was adapted well, but it's feeling the edges, as it were, because the growth has become a need. So, areas where you see that the most, the shelving is limited by the structural capacity on this floor. And shelving. Both the sort of the two-story lobby is both an asset as well as it takes a fair amount of space and can be tricky to use that sometimes. The staff work area on the lower level is tucked away and a little bit compressed for its functionality. Children's program elements are bursting at the seams. Anybody, a parent can tell you if you've seen the library in action, especially the room just beyond this wall here, which we see in this photo. Something called a program room is becoming more and more frequent in library buildings and program. The old kitchen and break room is serving that as best it can, but it's tucked away. It's not intuitive to get to. It's small, and it's also the break room for the librarian, which can be a challenge. And then meeting room, which has kind of become a golden sort of item in libraries that if you build them, people will come. Study rooms are in demand in almost every library that we're touching. We've seen a fair number of these. Quick summary on these. Again, I won't go into great detail, but we're wondering that. So our process, we started, I guess it was late summer, meeting with the foundation board in this room. We also had programming workshops. In a quick synopsis of what that means is that we built the need from kind of a ground level up. So instead of building the need from the top level of population down and saying for this many people in a certain area, the building should be this big, we did it the other way around and built it from the ground up. So that was what this workshop was all about. There's a big long list of spaces and needs in the report that some of you may have seen. That's what that was about. And there was dialogue and back and forth that went on after that. As I mentioned, we also walked through the building with our engineering team, looking at systems, looking through drawings and documents from the history of the building to assess things like longevity and mechanical, roof and electrical and all those things. So how the process was. I went the wrong way. So this is useful maybe as much for us as coming from the state to your west as it is for anybody. It's good to get a handle on what geography are you drawing from. So this was just a look at your library system and kind of the region you're drawing from, the other libraries that are just at the edges of that. So understanding kind of the population, this leads to how many people you anticipate using this building. So, Sarah, do you want to just touch on this for a second?
Sure. So thanks to Sally and Jerry for bringing attention to the Hudson 2040 comprehensive plan. This was right in it. It had projected populations from 2020 to 2040. And Joe and I highlighted in red box kind of the main villages, townships, cities that come to this library. As you can see in 2020, which granted this document was in 2021, I believe. So it's projecting out 2025, 2030, 2035, 2040, and it's continuously growing. You see some dips. City of Hudson, they're predicting a little bit of drop, but then it jumps up again. So looking at it in a grand scheme of things, it's not just when you look at these options, you can't just plan for next year. You can't just plan for 2025, 2026. We should really be looking at a 2040 building. And you're spending the money, you want this building to last not just a few years and then come back anymore. So I think this really shows the population growth and it's what it's expected. And we put that within mind with our options.
Into this one.
Yep. So, and then this one, again, this was taken from, Shelley did the work from the
Library
strategies. Thank you, Shelley. And he shared this with us, which I think is really important to see other comparative libraries, similar size and population, serving that population and square footage they have. So right now you're sitting at just a little bit 19,000 and some change square foot. and comparative to the other populations, as well as other Wisconsin libraries, you are undersized for the serving your population.
Very good to point out that we're really kind of zoning in on this number, your population number, and the building square footage. This one's interesting too. I'll come back to that in a second. But if we keep this one number in mind, it's 32,433. And you see the city of Hudson itself, obviously is less than that, but your area that you're drawing from we're thinking sort of the big picture, right? So what's your service area? And when you think about the service area at 32,000, and the square footage looking proportionately lower than other libraries in the area, this is one that traditionally has been used by library planners as a way to say top down, again, not ground up, but sort of thumbnail from top down. For this many people, how big should the library be? It used to be 1 square foot per capita. So, at 32,000 square feet, it would have been a 32,000 square foot library. That number started to change. That metric started to change over the years as libraries have become less about repositories for books. It's still that, but it's becoming much more, which is why I think you see some of your neighboring libraries getting bigger. Eau Claire recently renovated, 60,000 square feet. They added on 7,000 square feet. And obviously a different service area, but you see the trend, and that trend happens, goes back to the needs we talked about, which are things like the meeting rooms. And library being seen as a community resource for things beyond what they had been traditionally. So, one of those big parts, though, are books. And obviously, that's a factor in this building in particular. I mentioned the structural load capacity of this floor that we're standing on right now. Out here beyond this door where the building is, it's just a concrete plank is sort of the technology that's used out there. 2 simple beam lines, and that concrete plank can flex. And if you get jumping out there, you can feel it a little bit, which is why that shelving is spread out further. And so we did explore as part of this study, what if you were to beef up the structure here? Could we have more books? Could we fit more of a kind of a traditional density of shelving on this floor? And if you start to unwind that thread from the sweater, it's not just the floor plank, but it's also the beams that are holding up the floor plank, the column, all the way down to the foundations and footing. So what we found is that we didn't put an actual cost to it, but we're able to say it's a bigger deal than just beefing up this floor. It goes all the way down. So there's a significant impact there. So in our study, we didn't propose to increase the density of books here. However, you've got a problem in this building in that you're limited to about 51,000 volumes, I think, in-house right now. And you honestly, you really need, there's different opinions about how many you should have, as high as 90 to 100,000 volumes. In our study, we are assuming about 80,000 volumes. So we're assuming that by the time you either do an option that would renovate this building or do something else, population is going to keep growing, the demand is going to keep increasing, and we're going to plan for more books than you have right now. But we're not stretching all the way up to 100,000 volumes. So that makes sense in terms of kind of the basic metrics. This is also important just to kind of see, there's some other libraries that we've had experience with recently. The trend is for about a 66-inch high shelf, top shelf. So we basically get 4 usable shelves, sometimes 5 if you use the bottom one. I bring something like the fill that one's the medium backbreaker. So we're most often seeing, if you see a person here about 6 feet tall, this will become the trend. So these are taller than that. Makes sense for fiction where the books are paperback a little shorter. But all to say, kind of the dynamics there are we need more volume, up to about 80,000. We need more floor space to do that. So how are we going to fit that as a plan for the future? So that's something to keep in mind as we go through those. We think about the future. We talked to Shelley and her team about how do we design for Hudson's future? What are the right moves to make to build into this thinking? That we're not designing it right now. That will come in the next steps. But the things that honestly are trends that you're seeing in the best libraries across the globe. And there you might expect AI and robotics and things like that. Those are real, those are factors, but in a community library, which Hudson very much is community centric and very much used by the community. Here are the sort of the trends that make great libraries. It's a place that becomes a civic square, so it's a gathering place where people want to go. You've got the beginnings of that with your gifts, with your adjacency to all these wonderful things. Assets like this nice big glassy lobby starts to build a civic square, being specific to a community. So it's not just, I can put this library anywhere, but this is about Hudson, Wisconsin. So a great example in an African influenced neighborhood out east that use cues from that. Integrating to life, this kind of translates into maybe children's spaces that are activated. They can be exuberant, they can get their motor skills, growth motor going, and they can sit and read a book with a grandparent, all those good things. But as you think about great libraries, we're seeing this is the library, I believe, in New England. And then this is actually one of ours. This is learning and doing. You've got the beginnings of with your program room right now. This is the teaching kitchen we did in Anoka County. So it's a maker space. It can be used for also for teaching cooking. So they've got the community garden just outside this building. They harvest vegetables from that. They do healthy eating classes. They can make podcasts. There's cameras up inside the hood. So if anybody's seen the Philadelphia, their main library, they've got the Culinary IQ Center where they have a huge version of it. It's really cool. So there's a lot to think about. So let's take a breath. Anything I missed here? We want to make sure we roll in before we talk about options. Okay. So these are kind of the back of our mind while we're thinking about planning for potential options. And I can tell you, we come in as your consultant, we come in agnostic to what the outcome should be. We don't have a horse in the race other than to serve you. And so we did start kind of at trying to be a spectrum. We started with what's the minimum you can do? The police department's moving out from the floor below, half that floor. What if you just at a bare minimum, if oops, this is different. Yeah. We'll come back to that. Okay, so option one was at the smallest end of the scale, and it said, what if you just took over police department, which is this shape here? So this is the way these are set up. This is lower level, main level, and upper level. And then here it is sitting with an aerial photo of the site. So this one, again, minimal. This is saying, whoops. Don't move my arm.
It's the shadows. It's your shadow.
Oh, shit. So this one said we're going to leave the lower level alone. We're going to take over the P and build that out as a library and likely to be children's space. Staff, work area where it is, keep lobby obviously. And then reconfigure the upper level here because we want children. Don't worry too much about what goes where, but more about big picture scope and scale. So again, this one is kind of a middle move. It also did assume some landscaping to just outside of the lobby here. So remaking the steps, remaking the front door. In this project, when you look at construction, so in real basic terms, we've got your construction costs, what we're going to call contingency for when's this going to be built, is the design going to change, what if they want to add a room, we don't know, but there's unknown there, so there's 15% contingency, and then project costs, soft costs, and needed the building. So when you add that all up, about a $9 million project to renovate East 2 Floor. Do a little bit of work outside. Anybody shocked with those numbers? I mean, this is the smallest one. We've been sticker shock in the last 4 to 5 years because the goods and services have gone up, up, up. And things that were 5 years ago were a $4 million project, now an $8 million project. So this is one of those interior renovation. And these are the realistic numbers that I can tell you that, because we're doing a renovation right now, just over in the West Metro, in Twin Cities, and the cost per square foot is significant. So stepping up from there one notch, the second option was to say, what if you did similar to what we just described, but you also use that lower level? So then you got a 3-story, use all 3 stories. The parking goes away in the lower level, and you fill that with significantly a large community space, support space for that. And that parking used to go elsewhere now. There's about 14 spaces down there, and we'll find a different home. To do that, you need to extend the elevator, the one right over here, down to that lower level, which it currently doesn't serve because the one back here is too small to be accessible. But you got costs associated with the elevator, and you've got all the renovation that came with the first point as well. You've also got outside here. And Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about the implication there?
So with modifying this lower level, not only are you staffing 3 levels now, so operationally it goes on, but as well as this outside portion site work costs a little bit more than the option 1, due to the fact that we're probably be adding in some glazing, bringing light into that lower level, as well as removing a curb cut, sidewalk, all the good things that come with really modifying the side of a building. It's not just adding steps and modifying the landscape up to the entrance, but now you're touching the street. So with that, the kind of had some basic numbers here, which we'll get into a cost analysis later in the slide. So the site work was not equaling out to 250 square foot because of those elements just pertaining to doing the lower level. Egress,
Windows. So that's too. And I think, as we work through that, some of the operational challenges really became apparent. Running a 3-story library, especially with potential for a lot of community members to be at the lower level, there's pros and cons. It's all contained. In at 12.6 million, it's affordable, compared to some other projects these days, but it's also, you got to balance that with how would you staff this and would it achieve what you want to achieve for that mix of needs. Third option we looked at was saying, what if we don't go back to the idea of not doing anything with that lower level? So keep that as parking, do renovate, take over the PD, renovate that, staff work area, the collections area out here, children's area right there. And then also add an addition. So here's the building footprint. You could be filling in an addition here with about a 3,500 square foot per floor. So this would be on 2 floors. So adding about 7,000 square feet to the building. And the benefit of that is that now you get 2 floors of significant floor plate. You can flow from the addition into this space, and likewise on the ground floor, flow in from the parking lot, possibly with an entrance here off the parking lots, as well as keeping this one. So operationally, there's some benefit in doing that, and I think that's starting to become appealing as you think about operating library, the needs that emerged. This one, with the addition, this gets to 17.3 as a project cost. And I should say, these project costs are in today's dollars. So we don't know when this will be built. So if that becomes more clear, we'll need to escalate that number out to 3, 4, 5, whatever, how many years it may be in the future.
I think to note with this, you retain parking on lower level. So it does open up a few stalls for staff, as well as out in this parking lot here. The addition doesn't necessarily affect the parking stalls. So now, like whatever stalls the police department currently have, as well as staff now go to patrons. So you do retain all the parking, which is an add, as well as the addition can be structurally appropriate for the collection side. So you no longer have to necessarily, you can still have collections over here, but now you can fully structurally support a larger collection. That's if you know structural engineering, I wouldn't say I do entirely, but collection space is heavy, and it's not just this is not this building. That's why these stacks have to be appropriately sized each other, so we can really stack up that addition to support books.
Great point. So what Sarah's saying is that here's the shelving area out there right now. And this wall between that area and the addition could be opened up. So there'd be collections would be all one continuous space. However, that space could be packed at a more dense and typical level of library shelving. So, does that make sense? Okay. All right. The fourth option that we oops,
Yeah, if you can keep it going.
I'm going to come back to that. So we did get we were asked to consider a fourth option as well, and that is to what if we were building a library? Blue sky option, so we showed a wonderful pasture with trees and wood sky. We don't know where this might be, so there's a lot of unknowns with an option like this. It's hard to put a price to this. What we did was we kind of hit the middle to upper middle. That's the most responsible thing we can do for you. If we were to say, you could build this for much less cost, we don't want to set you up for a disappointment here. So that said, this is very simple. This is sort of the building assumption math. We're working from 3 examples that are recently been estimated they're about to be built. These 3 are in a large county to the west that will remain unnamed, but I'll just say they are large new builds on greenfield sites. They've been in the news a lot, and there's so many variables here. And that's why we shot, this sounds shocking, $800 a square foot. Are you kidding me? But so just to, yeah. So again, the variables there, what goes into, how do we factor this? How do we get to a cost like this? Again, design variability, we don't know the design per se yet. Site variability, site is huge. If you've ever built a building, you cross your fingers until the site work is done, because it's all unknown below the ground as much as you hope to know. And with sites that we've heard maybe in consideration, there's topography, there's soil variability, there's water variability. So it's smart to build in a budget for some unknown like that. The longevity, as you build a new building, new library, a new symbol of Hudson, Wisconsin, what's the image that you want out there? If they do the civic place, the art place. We generally build those buildings to a higher level. Sometimes we call it a 100-year building or a 50-year building. The walls are more stout, the roof is longer lasting, all those things. So we design to a higher level. And then back to that kind of the civic square idea. This is kind of a place of pride. So you can push that number up or down depending on how you tweak these variables. I will tell you those 3 examples we compared to. One of them is $1,200 a square foot, includes site cost. One of them is $1,000 a square foot in the west metro, and that one's heavy on sustainability. So there is a variable too. That's the energy use variable. And the third one's $900 a square foot. So we said, we've worked with the team here long enough to know that we're not going to shoot for the absolute Cadillac Escalade. We're going to shoot for a really good, really solid, long-lasting building. So even the $800 a square foot makes us feel like, this is, we come down from other recent precedents, but we don't want to come so far down that you get upset later with additional sticker shock. So that went into figuring for a new build sort of projection. Again, this is very rough thumbnail, but saying, you need to consider a project cost of about $45 million. An all-in project. So that's, again, it's soft costs. But things there's something that's not. We can go into more detail on that, but is there anything there?
think one thing that's not included that would probably be the land acquisition.
Thank you.
Yeah, site works included, but buying the actual land where this building would place, that I don't think we included that into this number. That could be very variable.
Typically not included in project. And here's our reference point. So I mentioned, so these are new here. This one, here's the one's 1,000 square foot. This is the one that I mentioned. The county library is high. This would be a net zero project. So sustainability was a top goal for them. They're going to produce all their own energy. That brings that cost up significantly. So that's why they are there. This was one of the others. This was the 985. And then here are, this is interesting. These are some of our, sorry, which one is ours? Or the library?
Yeah. You can see these it's anyone was wondering. So
You thought you were talking to her.
so yeah, we had an external consultant, so consultant to a consultant, right? We work with them quite often. They estimate most of our projects currently and provided these examples. So their libraries, they're local, and the one we are currently doing is the County Library of the Blue section, which again, in that case, the client also hires a price estimator. We have a price estimator, and they are right in line with each other. So again, we're double checking him for this project. We're trusting him, and it's coming out $200 per square foot for a renovation. That one's about 20,000 square feet. 24,000 square feet. So just get it. Okay, 25,000 square feet. So put in perspective, as well as the other three libraries, our consultants came out with examples that are again local in the area, right around that 165, 216, 225, or we're doing is 200. So renovation tends to be a little more bang for your buck, I would say, sometimes.
Sure. So something I did want to maybe clarify, we didn't go into the detail of building a need. Does anybody have questions about the size, how we got to a certain size? Because we didn't detail it here, but it's in the report, and it's a ton of detail on that. And I can talk about that if it's helpful.
Joe?
Yes, Jerry.
Could you go back to the slide that you had on gross versus net?
Yep.
That becomes important to the terminology we use, right?
So good to know. So this is easiest to see in a new building. So when we think about a new building, when somebody says, I need a 10,000 square foot of usable space, we'll say, great, okay, we'll need a 10,000 square feet of usable space. That's going to be 14,000 square feet of building space. I need a mechanical room, I need a data closet, I need a stairway, columns and walls and shafts and all those things you can't use. Like, don't go into this space, that's wall space. So when we talk about net square feet, that's what we need. So the red box is the stuff you can use, and these things are things you need, but we're not going to call those part of the net assignable or net usable square footage. When we talk about gross square feet, this is the number we priced. So this is how big is the building literally in its footprint all the way to the outside of the brick on all its sides. Then we apply the cost to. So I gather from discussions we've had that some people think that, hey, I need a 29 or a 30,000 square foot library. And I think what I'm gathering is that most often they're talking about net square feet of a library. Whereas when you think about building, you're going to need more than that for some of those spaces. In the case of renovating, we look at it in a similar way. So we say, we're going to be renovating the children's area and the shelving area. We're not going to touch that back stair. So we're not going to apply a cost for that. Part of the gross square feet you own, but you're not going to spend money renovating that stair in that case. So if I give you costs, that gross to net can be kind of confusing, but that's maybe the simplest way to put that. Does that kind of make sense? Anybody have a question on it? Okay. So
It's also like proportional, so thinking when it's 10,000 square feet, it's 14,000 gross, right? And you get up to 20, it's now 28 for an idea. So proportional to the net is how we want to come up with that percentage.
and you can kind of see here, we have like these dark gray areas are this is we're good. So because the PD is being renovated, you could take out all the walls in the PD, reshape it. You got kind of a gross interior area to work with, so it used to be a little bit nuanced there, but whereas the addition would just be gross area. We're building a whole new addition. In this case, that addition does some good work for you because it doesn't need a lot of services. You're going to tap into the services and look for them that already exist. You've already got data and telecom. You've already got mechanical systems we can add on to and expand. We don't have to invent those things from scratch. So, kind of nice. That it's almost like adding a living room to your house instead of a kitchen. In the kitchen, I got to have a vent and refrigerator and a stove. You were kind of adding raw space, and it's really what you need most. You need more building space and things like that.
So could you go through all three options and explain what the gross square footage is and how much actual library we get?
Yeah. That'd be very good.
One, oh, another one. Yeah, there was another. Oh, maybe it's the same. No.
It's at the very back for it's we can include them.
Yeah, so look at page 26 of the report. Anybody have the report in front of them? Okay, so I'm just going to refer to that page. Gotcha. And Shelley has got through.
Has second.
Okay, so everybody on page 26, okay, so on that page, it's a chart on the bottom of the page. Across the top, you're going to see the options, the option 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to, for sake of argument, I'm going to not talk about 1 and 2 because I think those were pretty quickly eliminated from discussion. There you go. Yep, that's the one. And then pull down the left-hand side of that page, the column there, you're going to see the first one is need. And that's what we built from the ground up. That's how many square feet that we are hearing that the library needs to operate optimally. Yeah, that's a consistent number all the way across. You see that 32,000 square feet? We've identified that as need. And that bigger than you have right now. I'm going to go a line down now. And it says net square feet available. That's in this building, okay? So existing 16,554. When you add PD, you get to about 24,091. That's option 1, yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to go down a row from that. You're going to see some fine print. That's all the grossing stuff. So that wall, columns, shafts, stairs, mechanical room, all those things. And you'll see a smaller set of numbers for those. There's a reason why the existing one, that number was huge. That's because we assumed that the garage space was not in use. So we threw that in. We said you own that space, only, but it's not part of the library in some of these documents. Okay. Okay, so now back to Shelley, your point. The big difference here from this bottom row is the gross square feet. the top row that says net square feet, that's where you can see the difference. And so I'm gonna skip the very last one, option 4, and we'll work our way back. In option 4, it's a 40,000 square foot building. And that's your gross area. That's all the way to the outside of the whole building. And that includes everything, mechanical rooms, data closets, all that stuff. The usable library square feet, the net square feet is 32,000 square feet in that case. And again, we're squinting at this because we don't know for sure what the systems are and all those things. So, question, anybody? No. So you can kind of see the net to growth comparison there. And so, as a point of comparison to that, prior studies that we were not involved in recommended a library for Hudson of, between 43,000, roughly,
Depending on collection.
depending on collections. Right, we talked about how many volumes in the collections. So the way we got to our need was saying 80,000 volumes, and we didn't shoot for the highest level of net areas there.
That's what, yeah, are you thinking that scenario that in one story?
Most likely
validated.
Yeah, so you wouldn't have elevators in this area, right? Right. To be determined, we don't know the site, but from our understanding, probably now that gets into challenges too. There's a tipping point at about
26 to 28.
26 to 28. If you're above that, 26 to 28,000 square feet, you go above that, it's hard for a librarian team to keep tabs on 40,000 square feet of library or 32,000 usable square feet. Yeah, makes sense. So the question of is it 1 or 2? Some libraries would opt to go to 2 stories and above 28,000 square feet. You see a pretty big floor plan, but there's an efficiency factor there too, like these many stairs and elevators. So option 3 then, if we work back one column, now this is interesting. See that bottom number, 47,782, it sounds enormous, right? Like we don't need a library that big. Well, the reason that is because that's accounting for this lower libraries we're not proposing to use. So again, you own that space or the benefit. You can have book deliveries can come in there. You can have staff parking could be in there. There's a variety of uses that would not be sort of library patron use typically, which is why in option 3, the net square feet available is 31,091. So that's all the stuff that not counting this. So that's your existing renovated plus the addition on 2 floors. And then you can compare that 31,091 to what we stated as the ground up need of 32,316 across that top row. You can see, we're within shooting distance of the identified need. So our understanding is that option 3 is more or less favorable to foundation board. It strikes a balance of having enough room to plan for the needs and for the number of volumes you want to kind of hit, and stay as fiscally responsible as you possibly can to plan for that. So that is probably enough, hopefully, on the growth square feet there. So that, okay. Happy to talk more about that. So questions, I think it's a good time maybe for me to stop talking and for you all, any questions you may have about this or not about this related. Yeah.
Could you explain what's involved in the soft pot?
So soft pots are the non bricks and mortar.
I think the easiest that was taught to me back in architecture school was you take a building, you flip it upside down, anything that falls out, soft cost. So chairs, tables. It sounds silly, but like anything that's connected is kind of more or less your construction cost.
All the furniture,
Furniture, yeah.
shelving.
So the collection shelves would be technically a soft. They can be quite expensive as well.
You can see some cases where we'll put that into the construction contract, but other things in soft costs would be permit, um, permits, inspection, yeah, testing.
Is contingency overruns part of soft costs, or do you build those in different?
We've got a separate number, and we identified a 15% contingency, which is fairly healthy, but not 20% would be sort of extravagant. 10% would be not advisable. 15% kind of strikes a balance. And again, that's what if you change your mind in 3 to 5 years about, we do need both and more. Who knows what's going to change in the time? That's kind of a factor. But yeah,
It is included in the totals that you have.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
In my experience, the contingency was narrowed down as you went further into the process and the definition to the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Rob. So we're in the same profession. So there's generally 3 stages of design. It goes from fuzzy, a little clearer. Now we're going to build it. As Rob said, early on, you're going to keep a big contingency because there's still a lot of unknowns. The further you go, get close to construction. Now we know pretty closely what we can kind of eliminate the design contingency. You still keep some construction contingency, 5% or so for again soils, unknowns, when you take apart existing buildings, things like that. So, did that answer your question? Anything more there?
So, have you worked, or your company worked on a variety of libraries in the area around here?
Yeah, we're doing one right now, which Sarah mentioned earlier with the renovation project. The 25,000 square foot building, only interior renovation, and that one's in
200 square foot on the dot.
$200 per square foot.
So just design development pricing back. So, we're not quite at bid documents where it's you're constructing it, but we're over halfway, I would say, with price estimate. So
Yeah, and that's $200 per square foot. It's only interior. There's nothing in the exterior.
and that does not include your sunk costs. So
That's on one. Yeah, right. Yeah, it used to be you'd say, wow, I built a house for $150 per foot. Why can't I build a library for $275? Yeah. Again, and again, that was verified. That was 2 separate cost estimators that Sarah mentioned. And they're sort of neck and neck, right even on that. We feel good about that.
Have you worked on other libraries over the past 5 years?
Yeah, one of the other ones, the one we showed with the teaching kitchen, was teeny tiny. That was a 6,000 square foot library in Anoka County. And we about doubled that in size. And again, that started construction in.
Probably 5 years ago, but
Yeah.
To answer your question, in Anoka, Dakota County, or do we work in quite often? Hennepin, we work in quite often. Harper County, we worked in. Washington, we have not. That's the closure. We have not worked there. Also working across the country in libraries. We've got library projects currently right now in Miami and Omaha. Kaʻalui, Hawaii, actually, believe it or not.
they did let me go to Hawaii.
These prices. So yeah, we do work across the nation, but I think one of the things that's particularly significant, not just about library per se, but about construction costs, is the commercial building code is different than the residential building code. The commercial building code requires a lot of energy performance requirements that residential building codes don't require. And so we can't even draw comparisons between residential and commercial, just sort of outright because the codes are radically different. The things that then make a library construction cost different than any other kind of commercial building, right? Like I could do a strip mall down the street. Why is that cheaper? Something of that sort. It has to do with the span of the construction. So we have larger steel spans, roof spans here because we've got large open spaces. We don't have those same large open spaces often in retail. You go into, say, Walmart, you're going to see a structural column every so often, and they're going to line their shelves up with those things. we have the tendency to see much larger spans. Larger spans are deeper structure. Deeper structure is more money, heavier snow load, and so those things just kind of compound. So I think that's one of the pieces that we see that makes libraries more expensive than other project types. The other thing that we see libraries being more expensive than other project types, especially as we compare it relative to retail, is HVAC and lighting. So people's expectation for temperature comfort while walking through a Target grabbing something from a cold cooler is not the same thing. Their temperature comfort when they're reading a novel in the corner for 4 hours. And so the mechanical electrical systems are more calibrated in occupiable spaces than transitory spaces. And so we can't always compare commercial spaces to the library in that instance. The others related to lighting. And if you look, even looking out these windows here, you can see kind of the warm color tone of that light. It has kind of a young tone to it. That's actually easier on our eyes, etc. You go into a Walmart or Target and you look up, you're gonna actually notice it's a blue color tone. It's a cool lighting tone, a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier. But those kinds of things become harsh when you're sitting reading under a blue tone light for a long period of time. And so, you know, you add all of those things up and the comparison between libraries and other project types become challenging. So that's why we look at library precedents to help us understand what the going cost is for those. They're large span, human comfort kind of mechanicals, human comfort kind of electrical things for that.
So another question, you've had a chance to look at this building per se, from the mechanical, electrical, and so forth. Could you give us a summary of that?
Yeah, the sort of the one of the systems you've got in the building, you know, they date to 91, I believe. The heart of those systems is in pretty good shape. The air handlers are fine. The chillers obviously relatively new. We haven't replaced in the last 2 years. So that's a huge asset. There are some issues. There's a little bit of corrosion down below the air handler, so we know that there's some condensate leakage with happening when you cool and apply air conditioning. So there's some upgrades that are needed to the big air handler that's down in the garage, kind of in that corner down there. The electrically service is fine. Data is a little bit of a smorgasbord because you had sort of 3 lives to the building. You've got the original office function, and you've got the 3Ds, got their own kind of data needs and systems from the library. But data would need a little bit more of an overhaul to bring everything kind of within sync. You know, things like fire protection, obviously, you would need to expand it if you expand the building, but that would, what's in place, the service is fine. In terms of systems, you know, and then we get to the roof. The roof is flat portion as original. It's not leaking. There's no problems that are foreseeable for the 5 to 7 years. There are a few areas that are a little spongy. There are some of the ballast is kind of spreading away from so it'll need attention in 7 to 10 years. And it's a built-up roof. So it's sort of the longest lasting kind of roofs you can go with a flat roof. The barrel vaulted section, it looks like one of them was replaced from the dealer damage. The other one's not, for whatever reason, but they're metal roof, and metal roofs they can take hail for the most part. They're quite stout, so the roofs are in good shape. The windows, you get kind of a mixed bag. I'd say, you know, roughly, I think we came to a number of about 20 to 25% of the windows, especially on this end, the facing pretty intense west end front. You can see some rot in the bottom of those windows, pretty soft spots and discoloration. So some of the windows need to be replaced. Not the lobby, obviously, those are fine. Any other systems they didn't touch on?
So architecturally, from the architectural standpoint, looks a pretty solid building to be working with.
Yeah, the bones in this building are just fine. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a benefit. I mentioned earlier the concrete plank that forms this floor. while it can't take full library load, it's great for acoustics. So footballs up here, you can't hear them down there. So in a two-story library, that's not a factor. So, and then you got a parking garage and a base for the thing. So that's the concrete structure. So, I think there's potential concrete for the deck, the lower level deck. So that's down, yeah. So under the PV. So yeah, so you're working with good bones here. The kinds of things that we're talking about, the upgrades to mechanical, the technology, those are like replacing the brakes in your car. You know, you have to do it every so often. So that's even the roof, that's a factor. Even if you were to build new in 25 to 35 years, that's a factor. So, yeah, I think you're working with a good build.
Joe, a little bit behind this, automation. Do you know of any libraries in Wisconsin, Minnesota that are looking at highly automated robotic type, additions and so forth?
I don't know of any in those two states. The example we're showing here, this is University of Chicago. And most often when automation comes up as a thing, it's an academic library. So this is one of those, this is about 10 stories below ground. They've got millions of volume in a library like this. So this is the person and here's all the books. So how do you get those books? Well, you order it up on a computer and this thing sort of zooms through, pulls out one of these stainless steel pins, brings it up. Now, this is for research. This is not a community library. This is there's a fair amount of capital that goes into an enterprise like this. And also, when you get to a university setting, we got to have our research. We're not seeing automated retrieval in community libraries. Just doesn't often appear. There's other kinds of technology. This is a quote from Stephen Abram. It has a great series he writes about the future of libraries. And he's talking here about robots in libraries. And his first thought was, he mentions academic research libraries here. So he's referring to this kind of an institution. And then he goes on to say, this is kind of like Jules Verne, sort of like, what's the future going to be like? Well, this was written in 2019, this particular one. And he talks about the robot will retrieve a requested item, will deliver this item to another robotic system that will open the item and turn the pages automatically, scan the text in the picture, and put those into a system. So this is a massive, massive enterprise, very different from a public library. To us, the public library is still about, I want to get a book and read it with my kid. I want to sit with a view of the river. You know,
It goes back to the slide that says more than just books.
more than, yeah, right. You know, research is like AI. It's like it's coming, and we can't change that. But I don't think it's going to change. You know, I want to bring my kid to the children's space and go to an author reading. The robots aren't going to do that, or at least not when I take my kid to it. So I think most often when we hear discussion about automation in libraries, it's on a huge scale like this. And then I think on a smaller scale, I think we're just not seeing it in public libraries.
Only I see is maybe the automated material handling, so and book return. So when you get to the 40,000 square foot new build, that's something to consider during design, is if you want to put that towards the soft cost. So when someone comes and returns the book, if that gets sorted into a bin, then a librarian should be able to come in and take that back. So that's kind of where we're seeing it right now, and probably for the foreseeable future in community libraries.
When was that retrieval system built?
This one is 2010, I want to say. So 15 years ago.
The system itself, like we have in our office an industrial theme. So you're seeing this in Amazon warehouses, you're seeing this in the Walmart warehouses, and we work on those projects. We have a whole team for it. So the AI kind of world is still evolving, and we do know about it, but as you get one, probably not replacing it until there's something newer and better and significantly more than just 15 years.
If I were reading your questions, like, how many years did it start to seem kind of a little bit antiquated?
Well, 15 years ago is
Right.
very antiquated now.
Right.
I mean, 15 years ago, we didn't even plug our phones into our cars.
Right.
And now I can't start my car without my phone.
Right.
I mean, we're literally every day there's something new. It's so exponential that I don't know. I like this Steven guy. I think I'd throw a hug double back tap him, but I think I disagree with him that it's not going to be here because how many things did we say 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago? Computers will never be in everyone's home, right? And you had Gene Roddenberry going, "Oh, there's this thing called a portable access device for our engineers to go around in Star Trek." Now we literally have Gene Roddenberry's devices that run our lives, right? So I mean, yeah, I don't know.
I will say one comment, like, so I'm newer in the profession, but when I started, Revit is kind of modeling the program we use. When Revit started to come in, I think architects around the nation thought, we're out of jobs. Revit's just gonna take over the world and they don't need us anymore. Well, it turns out they still need the person to control Revit. That's what we design in.
Yeah.
So it only evolved our profession. So just like AI, I think it's only going to evolve a library. It's not going to be full of robots, but robots will be probably included eventually. AI will be included eventually, and preparing for that.
Yeah. Interesting corollary would be e-books,
Yeah.
which have been a thing for a while now. And in theory, offer the easiest possible way. I can sit at home in my pajamas and order a book, check it out online, and I've got it. I didn't have to leave my house. And what we're seeing is that there's a supply chain issue with that, with the publishers and rights of books. There's not necessarily a cost benefit to e-books. So there's an issue there. There's the human. What does the human create? What do they come to a place like this for? So you could say, okay, of that 32,000 square feet, a certain percentage of that is housing paper print volume. And a certain percentage of that, people want to hold their hand versus check out an ebook. So there's, I think there's 20 years ago, the librarians in training would say, our jobs are going, just like you said, Sarah, with automation for design. And we're working with librarians right now who their main job is helping people who need a lot of help. So it's not necessarily, we're going to find this book on quantum mechanics. I'm in a crisis, and I happen to be in the public building, and I'm in the crisis right here in so the librarians in the room can probably speak to what they see on a daily basis. So there's many aspects. So there's a crystal ball, obviously, there with how does that affect how big of a library you need? What do you put into it? What do you plan for?
I have a follow-up question though on that particular University of Chicago library.
Yep.
How much would it cost to house 1 million volumes if you built a structure and then had the FTEs to maintain it? And then, so I mean, that's where your cost, even though it costs a lot to build that out, to actually have access to that and have it very quickly is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I can answer that, but I can answer relative to sort of our industrial facility. So, Jared mentioned we do a lot of industrial facilities that use this automated retrieval robotic system. The equipment furniture itself for one of those standard distribution facilities is between 12 and 16 million. That's just the stuff. That's not the programming or the ongoing maintenance for those programming.
Right.
Most of them carry ongoing maintenance plans of about $2 million just to run the software, run the program, troubleshoot the program. We did have a facility actually Johnson, this happened to Johnson Brothers liquor distribution, anybody knows. But the robots go and they kind of pick all the bottles over the evening, and then they stage them at the loading docks. And then during the morning, folks come and pick them up, put them on the trucks, what have you. somehow robot came down, dropped whatever bucket it had, and it brought everything else down with it. Glass, liquid, and all sort of on the floor. So, I mean, these things are not flawless either.
Right.
Obviously, we're not going to run into that kind of commercial challenge with books. But I think there's the initial investment, and I think we can't forget the fact that there's the ongoing maintenance investment and the troubleshooting. Nothing is perfect. So, I mean, what I would say is we're going to continue to see advancements with technology. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And so, to the degree that we can plan for that, we certainly can. But I think the things that we've continued to see with libraries, even after Y2K, right? Even after Apple, even after, you name it, BlackBerry, whatever, is people demand people. And it's people space for activities that might be solemn, like reading, studying, tutoring, etc. Or it might be that the cost of infrastructure is really expensive, like 3D modeling, 3D printing, plotter printing, things of that sort. So I think we're going to continue to see technology advance. There's no doubt about it. I don't think we're going to continue to see library square footage go away. I think that, the big argument that it's been doing this for 25 years in libraries, right? The big argument that libraries are going to go away when Y2K happened. They didn't go away. They've been just as robust as they will happen. And I think they're going to continue to be robust. We just need to be flexible in how we create space for ongoing human needs.
Is there sort of a tipping point for automated material handling? Like if you are this big of a community or you have this collection size, it really makes sense.
Philly, do you mean for return
Yeah.
processing?
Yeah.
I mean, we see them small libraries.
We do, but I think there's always a sort of, it depends, and it depends upon the proportion of your collection. So there you can get bin sorts in odd numbers, 3 bin sort, 5 bin, 7 bin, 9 bin, 13 bin, it's a pretty good point, right? And that's the level of granularity that the robot effectively is going to sort, right? So we can sort adult, child, media. That's a 3 bin sort. You're still going to have to go in and sort all the stuff that's in child, right? Because some of it's going to be juvenile and some of it's not, and etc. So when you get to the 5 bin, 7 bin, it's the granularity of sort that you're trying to get at. And so we can run the numbers, but it really depends on ultimately what your return volume is. And if you've got a really, really large return volume, say in one genre, it might make sense to do a 3 or 5 bin sort to separate that genre and kick everything else into the last bin. You're still going to have to sort yourself. But we can kind of run those numbers. The machines themselves are not cheap. They kind of start at 30 grand. They can go up to 100, 120 grand, something of that sort. So depends upon the investment. One of the, it's stinky, but one of the challenges that we see with those also is nights and weekends on holidays. They still get overwhelmed sometimes. They still need someone to have a little pager on call because, a book got stuck in something or other and you got to go kind of dig it out. So we do see that sometimes. They're not solid. I think the other thing that we see is they do tend to take up a little bit more room in the workroom. It's not a problem if you've got the room in the workroom, but if you don't have the room in the workroom, that does become a challenge because it's not just the piece of equipment itself. It's if you've got an outside drop onto that piece of equipment. Today's contemporary fire code requires that to drop into a fire code protected room, so no one can send a smoke bomb through it in the middle of the night, right? And then it gets in the daytime. So, you start sort of adding on these pieces that it takes up space. And so we certainly run those numbers. But for a library this size, it wouldn't be unusual to consider 5 bin to 7. You'd be somewhere in that kind of thing.
There's another question. What were you doing?
Oh, well, yeah, I was just gonna say, now I feel like you walked away from this, but I'm a researcher and I was just in the archive yesterday at the U of M and I'm looking at this and I'm going, God, it'll be nice to not have to be like, can you go to the cave, literal cave, and take out the archives for me and then in 2 days I'll come look at them. And my experience there going in the archives and doing research and just, I don't want to go through a lot of shelves to find what I need to find. It's like I've got this specific research question I wanted answered. That's a very different experience from being here. You know, it's like I just want to wander, I want to look around, I want to, you know,
browsable.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like a very different human experience.
And we just towards that, because you're right, it's a completely different human experience. There is a Carnegie, love public libraries, right? There is a Carnegie classification of libraries that gives us a lot of our library benchmark data. So there is a community library classification, there's a regional hub library classification, and then there's an academic research library classification. There's actually three of them. You know, once you get to archival quality, you're going to be a Carnegie classification research free, right? But those criteria give us some standard benchmarks for what an appropriate square footage might be, what an appropriate service area, what an appropriate collection size, you know, things of that sort. This is, even if it grows to say 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 square feet, still in the community library classification. Once you get to that regional hub classification, you're drawing much larger service area than you guys are drawing, and you're generally at that 60,000 square foot plus. So think of, you know, potentially downtown Minneapolis, right? That's that sort of regional hub kind of thing. And then you're a depository and a repository, right, for government docs and research data and archive, things of that sort. So you've got quite a few years before you grow out of that community classification. And so I think, you know, what's being recommended here feels appropriate, feels in line with the norm and the best practices, and I think gives you a lot of room space as well.
I'm kind of switching into a different subject, but have you seen a lot of libraries, you know, the types you work on that have kind of moved towards cultural centers, kind of historical archive and display and sort dealing
Yeah.
as a community story.
Yeah, the one is where that happens most readily is not in the United States. There's a library in Denmark where they have an internal courtyard with sort of benches and whatnot. There's a bell that hangs in the middle of the library. It's like a kettle. Anybody's seen that? And the kettle is tied to the maternity ward, the hospital. So every time a baby is born, there's this bell. You know what? And the conversation get espresso, and it's like all things you dream of. Everybody always wants coffee in the library, trying to do it. But in terms of integrating culture with a library, for some reason, Scandinavian countries, Germany, they understand they seem to bring in those aspects, and the books are still there, you know, but it's a place of gathering, and it's an urban environment where it's walkable. It takes advantage of being near other things, so I think you will.
I think another, like in the Netherlands, again, Scandinavia-ish area, kind of more of a maker's. So like, and then it's surrounded by a library. We did a few case studies for the Hawaii project we don't mind. So again, it's moving away just from books and becoming more of a community aspect, a cultural aspect of coming in and I'm going to grab lunch with a colleague, but it's in a library. Okay, so I think that's one future of libraries. It's a path for sure. And it's one way to add in that culture aspect.
What's kind of unique, I think, is this location has a little bit of that. You're near the Fifth, you're near the river, downtown. There's a natural sort of walkability to it. And as soon as you put a library in a much more suburban setting, sort of access only by car, less and less by public transportation, buses, and less by walking, it becomes a different character. So again, there's no right and wrong, there's pros and cons, but I think I would venture to guess that the foot traffic you get from this surrounding is more than you would see with sort of a far suburban location.
Any other questions regarding the report? Otherwise, I think we're going to move on the agenda. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I think we'll call a 5-minute break. So in the interest of time, we're gonna skip 5, 6, and 7. We're gonna go right to number 8, Director's Report.
I'll just call attention to a few items. Since we skipped the foundation, then I get to share the news that our mailer has been out about, at that point, it had been out about 3 weeks. And the
mailer.
Yeah, the mailer. And at that point, we raised $6,000. $60.
What was the target?
100.
And good.
Right now, we're at 87.
Oh, Susie, thanks for sharing.
Here,
that.
here.
My check. My
Did your check clear? Yes, so that is super exciting, and the 87 is incredible. We're not even at January, so congratulations. Also, we did send our $2,000 in ebooks to IFLIS, and I attached a sheet here. They have a wonderful collector who looks at our high demand holds and those kinds of things. But I think it's great to see what $2,000 buys you for ebooks. And on this sheet includes what is the lending model, 12 months and it goes away, or 24 months and it goes away. So it's the issue that we have spent some time talking about. Jamie went to a training and she wrote an article for IFLIS's blog. So I included that because it was a really good session about, we focus a lot on our full-time or mostly full-time and the librarians. And so she learned a lot about supporting our support staff. The other highlight is we've had this incredible programming year. And I hate to type that too much because it makes it sound like big numbers are the most important thing. And quality programs also matter, even if they don't draw these enormous crowds. But we're over $25,000 or 25,000 in program attendance. I think we'll hit probably 26, which is an all-time record for us. So kudos to Michelle, if she's still on, and all of the programming staff. And we have bulked up our library things, had to replace some things, and we've added 37 new kits. So that's really exciting. People are very engaged with the library things. It's really fun to see. See if I have anything else in there so we can keep moving. I think that is pretty much all of the highlights.
Okay. Thanks, Shelley. Any questions for Shelley on the report? Any questions for Shelley? Any questions for Shelley? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to number 9, potential action item, technology lending policy. Shelley, I'll turn that over to you.
Or Barb, do you or Bill want on?
Yeah. So we Bill and I and Shelley have been working on this and have gone over it, and what you'll find is a policy, a user agreement, which anyone who borrows technology equipment needs to sign. And there's a reference in the policy to safe practices, and I suggested that we should actually provide that. And so the last 3 pages are some information about safe practices with regard to technology that come from the Federal Communications Commission. Anyway, so we've gone over it several times, and we're recommending its approval by the board so that it can become official policy.
And I think we said that internet safety guideline is just available material that we offer to anyone who asks for.
And we did pull this out and separate the technology because we have so many items now in the library of things. Before it was sort of wrapped into our internet use policy, and that just didn't make sense anymore.
Okay, is there a motion to bring this forward?
So the motion comes from the committee. So I move on behalf of the committee, the board approve the policy as distributed.
Okay, there's a motion for library operations and services policy be amended. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Detlef. Discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion is approved unanimously. Number 10, potential action item 2024 budget transfers. Shelley.
This is everything we talked about at the last meeting, moving some of the half grant funds into other categories and then making some of these technology purchases. So it's exactly what we presented last time. So I can take any questions. Otherwise, it's really not new material. Finance committee looked at it too.
Okay. Is there a motion to bring the budget transfer forward?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Bring the budget transfer motion forward.
I hope second.
Okay, there's a motion by Wells, second by Klecker on the motion to bring the transfer forward for approval. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Motion is approved unanimously. Number 11, potential action item 2025 budget approval.
We also looked at this at the last two meetings. We have our revenue in there. All the expenditures are the same. I wanted to hold this one more meeting just to have a sense of where the foundations fundraising might land. And if it was looking weak, pull back on some things, but we've already hit the 60,000 for programming plus. So it is exactly what we discussed, and happy to take any questions if you have.
Okay, is there a motion to bring the budget forward?
I so move.
Okay, so
I'll second.
that would be a motion to approve the 2025 budget. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and there's a second by Fehrenbach.
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion on the budget? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the 2025 budget signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. With that, the 2025 budget is approved unanimously. Number 12, closed session. Pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee, I don't have this memorized, over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility, in this case, director evaluation and compensation. I'll take a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
There's a motion to go into closed session by O'Connor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Wells. That's a roll call vote.
Bernie,
Aye.
Wells,
Present.
Please say yes or no.
Aye.
Yes or no?
He is president.
he's still awake.
That's him in with us.
Peterson,
Yes.
DeLuca,
Yes.
Connor,
Yes.
Ditlock,
Hi.
Fehrenbach,
Yeah.
and Klecker.
Yes.
Okay, that is unanimous. We'll be going into closed session.